Well, I think she did a beautiful job interpreting all the things you're describing. And I love that you hired a Black artist.
So the whole team is Black and Indigenous.
I love it because
So
I
the
I
cover
love
was
it.
designed by Sadie Redwing, who's a
Hmm.
Lakota Dakota designer.
Nice.
The inside of the book was designed by Polymode, which is Silas Monroe, who is African plus American, and then Brian Johnson, who's indigenous of the Mohegan Nation. So it's a thing where, like, actually, MIT Press allowed me to put together this Black and Indigenous design team because they didn't have one. And I was very adamant about having a Black and Indigenous design team so that the content of the book and the form of the book were in perfect alignment with one another, right?
I love that because I do sometimes question Black authors and writers that do publish books, and they do not insist on, and they're talking about diversity initiatives and issues and concepts. And I'm not suggesting that white designers can't work well or interpret things properly. I'm just suggesting that there is something to be said for having an ecosystem of people of color, especially if you're working on doing what you're doing, which is decolonizing the design industry, or even decolonizing the social determinants of health, or trying to change pipelines of STEM. Like, what where is the proof that you're really doing the work if you're not necessarily incorporating people of color in the process and the ecosystem? That's what we're fighting against.
I
But I want to
but
but I want to
but
read
it
I want
takes
to
a
read
lot of
something.
courage. But I want to say it takes a lot
Yeah,
of courage to be able to push back. Because again, in
yeah.
publishing, it's so rare that people get
Mm-hmm.
published. Like if you're not
Okay,
self-publishing,
that's fair.
that you enter into that space actually with, let's say, first a sense of just gratitude that they're interested. Second of all, like there were moments of like if I didn't have a PhD in anthropology, I wouldn't have the guts to negotiate things, right? So to
Okay.
and it's expensive. Like so, I asked for a little bit more money and in terms of my advance to pay the team. But again, it wasn't like a lot. It wasn't the money that they were worth. And so what we
Yes.
ended up doing is
Understood.
actually now I've arranged with them profit sharing where whenever the book makes profit, that they get a percentage. We figured out the percentage based on like their level of contribution, et cetera, et cetera. And again, I had to do that like the contract, right, with MIT Press didn't support that. I had to do that as part of the contract I did with the design team, right? So again, it's a thing where like like not everyone has the understanding how publishing works, the boldness, right, to go through the legal ease, right, to say, actually, this doesn't feel right, this doesn't feel right, that this doesn't feel right. The resources, right, to hire a team because again, the MIT's press internal team was not black or indigenous or any of those things. So have the funding to be able to hire the team to do that work. So I want to set the reality check on all of what it takes to actually make something like that happen and how very few people necessarily have the resources or the wherewithal, right, to do that level of negotiation that I had to do with MIT Press to make that happen, right?
Yeah, but they're also, not going to, I'm not going to cut some of the people I'm thinking in my head slack because it does have to start with the idea and the understanding and the vision of what you're trying to accomplish and having the courage to actually articulate the vision, even if you don't have the wherewithal or the people or the understanding or the degrees in anthropology and the experience that you've had. It really does start with the initial intent. And if you don't have the intent, it doesn't really matter what you have. So I don't let people off the hook with stuff like this because I just can't. I'm proud of you and I'm glad you did it. And I'm like, I feel like you should actually put together a step by step guide for Black authors that are working in the space to say, here's how you can manifest, a Black and Brown and Indigenous people's ecosystem as you're producing not only your book, but other work in the world that you're in, because that's what we're really up against. We're up against not being able to get through any type of systems, and why can't we get through our own systems? That's something that's in your mind. That's a mindset issue, when you really think about it. But there's two things I want to do. One, I want to read this one chapter from your book. But I really did, I really, really wanted to ask you. So I have two things.